This is not an isolated incident, nor a sudden tension. What we are witnessing today is the culmination of a long, multi-layered process that has matured over decades. A church that discovers itself riddled with profound fractures, some obvious, others silent. And at the center of this historic turning point stands Pope Leo XIV, called to govern a phase that he did not create, but which he must now face in all its complexity. To understand the current picture, we need to go back to the end of the Second Vatican Council, which concluded in 1965. That moment was experienced by many as a springtime, by others as the beginning of uncertainty. Over the next 5 years, differing interpretations of the conciliar texts took hold. The priestly fraternity of St. Pius VI was founded in 1970. However, there was no immediate formal break. It came only in 1988, when episcopal consecrations were performed without a papal mandate during the pontificate of St. John Paul II. That decision left a visible wound, but not a sudden one. It was the result of a long process of attrition. From the beginning, the issue was not simply disciplinary. The crux was theological and hermeneutical. Was the problem the council itself, or the way it was interpreted and applied? Benedict XVI spoke clearly of a hermeneutic of continuity, as opposed to an interpretation of rupture. John Paul II intervened several times to correct liturgical abuses and pastoral deviations. It wasn't a question of denying the council, but of safeguarding its correct interpretation in the light of tradition. Today, that issue resurfaces forcefully. The superior of the society has announced his intention to proceed with new episcopal ordinations without a pontifical mandate. Canon law provides automatic consequences for such acts. Faced with this prospect, the Vatican has chosen to open a dialogue. A meeting officially described as cordial and constructive was held at the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. The statement released states that the goal is to find an agreement that allows us to accept what is considered essential from the Second Vatican Council. It's a precise formula, not an indiscriminate adherence to every subsequent development, but the acceptance of a core group deemed essential. In exchange, the possibility of a stable legal status within the Church is envisaged. No details have been provided, but the openness is real. After the meeting, the superior of the fraternity acknowledged the respectful atmosphere of dialogue. He added, however, that reaching that minimum agreement will be difficult. The final decision will be made by the Institute's internal bodies. Meanwhile, the possibility of new ordinations remains on hold. Such a decision would mark an extremely serious transition. While this is the visible front, there is another, less formal, but equally significant: the situation in Germany. The so-called synodal process has produced documents and guidelines that await, in part, a definitive assessment by Rome. Pope Leo XIV received in private audience Cardinal Müller, former prefect of the Doctrine of the Faith, and a profound expert on the German context. Further meetings with representatives of the episcopate are planned. But the issue isn't limited to palaces. It manifests itself in the daily life of parishes. From Frankfurt comes evidence of a parish presentation of the conclusions of the synodal process. In this context, it was stated that sexual orientation is inherent to the person as created by God. and that a stable relationship between people of the same sex is not, in itself, sinful. These statements were included in the material presented to the faithful. A believer wondered whether it was appropriate to continue attending a community where she perceived teachings different from those she had previously received. This isn't a polemical provocation, but a concrete pastoral question. How can local catechesis be reconciled with the universal magisterium? In Bavaria, two towns separated by a single road have divergent practices. In one, the parish council has decided not to provide confessions for children preparing for First Communion. In the other, confession is regularly offered. There are stories of priests who feel limited in their pastoral decisions and of lay councils with a decisive influence. These are not general accusations, but testimonies that describe a change in the configuration of parish authority. Thus, we are witnessing a silent transformation, not an overt schism, but a growing divergence in practices, languages, and pastoral approaches. If on the fraternity front the risk is a formal fracture, on the German front, a progressive modification of ecclesial life looms. Pope Leo XIV faces a twofold challenge. On the one hand, avoiding a new official rift that would reopen a wound that has never fully healed. On the other hand, to guarantee doctrinal and sacramental unity in a context where some local practices seem to deviate from received tradition. It's not a question of choosing between firmness and openness. It's a question of identity. The Church is not a federation of autonomous communities, but a communion founded on the same faith, the same doctrine, and the same sacramental structure. The hermeneutic of continuity is not an academic expression. It is the criterion for preventing the Council from becoming a permanent battleground. The risk of a formal split is clear, but there is also the more subtle risk of silent fragmentation, in which different territories adopt divergent practices without an explicit declaration of separation. Which of the two scenarios is more serious? The answer is not simple. History teaches us that ecclesial crises are not resolved with ambiguous compromises. They are overcome through doctrinal clarity and pastoral charity. Pope Leo XIV bears the weight of a complex legacy. The decisions that will mature in the coming months will not be mere administrative acts, but choices that will impact the Church's structure for years to come. We've reached this point through a long series of divergent interpretations, partial corrective interventions, and tensions that have never been fully resolved. Today, we're reaping the consequences of that journey. The picture is clear. Two fronts of tension, one responsibility. The crucial question remains open. Will it be possible to restore unity in truth, avoiding both formal rupture and progressive dissolution? The answer lies not only in diplomatic strategies, it concerns fidelity to tradition, clarity of teaching, and the ability to govern with courage. This is where history has led the Church. Not an accident, but the outcome of a journey. And now, the time for decisions approaches. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.